How you doing, ladies and gentlemen? It's Sally Pots and Pens coming at you live with the UFC 247, the most balanced card in UFC history, predictions and analysis. That's right. Okay, first fight of the night, we got the hometown boy Austin Lingo versus Yusuf Zalal. Huge discrepancy on the odds right here. You got Austin Lingo coming in at a 2-1 favorite, which is completely undeserved. And right off the bat, knowing where Yusuf Zalal comes from his camp, that this guy has some promise, and I would not be shocked that as the first fight of the night, he's going to come out here and pull by with a close decision, because Austin Lingo does not show to have the killer instinct in most of his fights from what I've seen. Okay, the second fight, the bantamweight scrap. You got Andre Ewell versus Jonathan Pussy Boy Martinez, and you know what? That's fucking right. That's what his nickname is. This guy come off beating two of the worst strikers in the UFC, and even though he pulled off a flying knee finish and looked great, a lot of casual fans and people that don't look too deep into it are just thinking this guy's a phenomenal striker after beating up a tomato can. But on the other hand, you have Andre Ewell, who is a huge bantamweight with his wingspan and very fast at this weight division. But the thing is, he gasses out incredibly fast. And that causes a lot of issues with him blowing fights where he's very decisively winning the first round and even halfway through the second round. And I know I'm calling him Jonathan Pussy Boy Martinez, but to be honest, with a 50-50 fight like this, you just have to throw 50 on Pussy Boy because, like, he's plus 105, and you're going to have to make some money off that. All right, next fight, you have the winner off Dana White's Contender Series, Miles Johns, coming in at minus 130 versus Mario Bautista. Another dude that is in the same category as Jonathan Pussy Boy Martinez, and this is the current theme of these fighters that I'm picking that are just not going to get by in the long term of the outplay of this division. You're looking at Mario Bautista, who in his UFC debut took a short notice fight versus Corey Sandhagen in the UFC Brooklyn, the first fight on ESPN, which I was at live, and he took him down, which seemed like he was doing a good thing, and then he ended up getting submitted. And in his last fight, he actually showed to have some heart and thrown some really heavy hooks and be able to throw some like bombs in these dirty boxing exchanges. Excuse me. But will that be enough for this tailor-made matchup for Miles Johns, who is short for the weight division? He's probably 5'4" or 5'5", but he has an insane gas tank, and he likes to implement a grinding style, but he is able to have a high volume with his strikes, and he actually has like some variety to his strikes. And to be honest, you see time and time again that these Contender Series fighters are matched up with guys that are just about on their skill level, that Dana White wants to get them a nice W. And in his last fight, he seemed to handle some adversity versus Cole Smith, and he was a gigantic fighter that basically just held him up against the cage and did nothing with it. And once it came down to the final round and he gassed out because he was cutting too much weight, Miles Johns literally just ran away with this contest. And that's why I'm going to take Miles Johns here. I think he's just going to be able to be a notch ahead of Mario Bautista. I think Mario Bautista can make it a good fight, and that can even make both of them a good play on DraftKings, because I honestly think both these guys are going to throw down because they're both pretty durable and like to throw down in the pocket. But I'm going to take Miles Johns at minus 130. And moving on to the prelims on ESPN, we have Alex Morono versus Kalen Williams. This is, just looking at these odds makes me shake my head and say this is the sketchiest thing of all time. Alex Morono is minus 330 versus Kalen Williams. You would think that's warranted, but one thing that's making me hesitant to believe that is right over my shoulder, there is a Nico Price signature and an Alex Morono signature. And Alex Morono got knocked the fuck out versus Nico Price, and he popped for the juice. And you know what? The juice is going to be a common theme in this episode, if you know what I'm alluding to. John Jones, he loves juice, but it's not specified what type. It may not be USADA approved, but he loves the juice. And right now, I know Alex Morono has some susceptibility to guys that really put the pressure on him, but he is very good with a Taekwondo karate style and striking, and actually is very well versed on the ground. And I am expecting him to get the win, but it's not going to be a minus 330 worthy performance where you're going to say, wow, Alex Morono beat the brakes off this guy and finished him. You're probably going to be caught in a situation where you're like, oh, Alex Morono's winning the first fight, and then he gets fucking rocked in the second round, and then it has way closer than it's supposed to be, and it's a split decision, and you just get it. And on DraftKings, it fucks you over. So don't get the bait. Don't put on Alex Morono. He is prone to losing to juicers, and I'm not saying anything about Kalen Williams, but the juice is a common theme of this whole card. The next fight, we have a women's 125-pound fight, Andrea KGB Lee versus Lauren Murphy. Again, the odds on this are absolutely insane, and yet another case of you are not going to get a minus 300 worthy performance out of Andrea Lee. You're not going to get a finish. Lauren Murphy is actually underrated and actually stylistically poses a somewhat of a threatening matchup if she can implement a grappling-oriented game plan. Again, this could make it closer than it has to be, or she could get screwed out of a decision. You see how a lot of these women's 125-pound fights go. When it's close, it's a split decision. And that's why the split decision is a split, because it's close. And I'm not going to recommend anyone betting on Andrea Lee or putting her in a parlay at all, because it's very sketchy. If anything, at plus 275 on Lauren Murphy, you might as well just put $10 on her to win by submission for plus 1,500 while you're at it, because Andrea Lee by decision is probably the most probable thing I could see out of this, but that's a hard pass for me. Okay. So the next fight, we have Trevin Giles, the hometown Texas guy, versus Antonio Arroyo. Antonio Arroyo, a disappointing Contender Series guy, which I feel like now they're trying to get rid of him after his performance against Muniz in his last fight. Muniz really showed him that he has a real susceptibility to grinders and people that can really just put him on the mat, because this guy was not willing to engage after it was established that he could not control the pace of the fight. And this guy is a gigantic middleweight. He's like 6'3", he's probably cutting from 210 pounds of water. This guy's absolutely gigantic, and that's why he gasses out quick. I honestly think this is a setup fight for the hometown guy, Trevin Giles, right here. That's a slight 130 favorite. And he does have heavy hands, and you see these guys time and time again that have huge hydration cuts have terrible chins, and especially at these heavyweight classes. And I'm going to take Trevin Giles by knockout. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're jumping back onto the main card, the pay-per-view, where Derek the Black Beast Lewis versus Alir the Midget Refrigerator Latifi. It's a 5'10" man from the European circuit. He's from fucking Sweden, not like Zlatan Ibrahimovic, who you'd assume is fighting in the heavyweight class. That's 6'5". This guy's 5'10" because he's dying getting to 205 pounds. He walked onto the scale today at 235 pounds. Derek Lewis, another gigantic, heavy-hitting heavyweight from Texas, opening up the main card. And you see time and time again, how do you get people from a marketing perspective to believe that they're getting value for paying for the card? Have the first fight be two guys where they're going to throw the fuck down and there's going to be a knockout. Just like at UFC 244 that I was at. Kevin Lee versus Gregor Gillespie. Kevin Lee disintegrated Gregor Gillespie, and he's from Long Island, and he's a wrestler from out here, and he's a fisherman. He's our boy. I have Gregor Gillespie's towel, but Kevin Lee killed him, and I hope Gregor comes back soon. But you're going to have to assume that Derek Lewis is going to go out of here and beat the brakes off this midget. And I'm going to have to say this price tag at minus 265 is a little bit crazy, but on DraftKings, I wouldn't think twice about not playing Derek Lewis. I think he's a lock in a DraftKings lineup, and I'm going to take Derek Lewis by a first-round knockout. The next fight, I have no idea why this is on the pay-per-view card, besides that Dan Ige is his own manager and works for Ali Abdelaziz, and he's versing the failed prospect, or the prospect that's making his comeback, Mirsad Bektik. This is just a fight where these guys, especially Mirsad Bektic, has shown a susceptibility to folding in fights once the going gets tough. And I think Dan Igue's grappling heavy style is really just a recipe to make Mirsad have issues. But I think that Mirsad's size and strength advantage and striking prowess might actually be enough to get rid of Dan Ige, because I believe that his strength of competition coming into this fight so far hasn't been incredible. And yes, they have been champions of other organizations, but I'm not sure if those guys are really top 15 UFC fighters moving forward. And let's be honest, a lot of Ali's guys get favorable matchups, and they're always close. But this is a hard pass for me, but I'm going to have to take Mirsad Bektic by a second round TKO. The next fight, we have Justin Tafa, the young Kiwi, versus Juan Adams, the heavyweight bout. Tafa got melted by Yorgan De Castro, plain and simple. This is his fourth fight. He's a Mark Hunt guy. This is how he got in the UFC with 4 fights, because he's Samoan. He's a young Kiwi. He's got the tattoos. He looks like Mark Hunt. He fits the part. But you could see the UFC kind of likes Juan Adams, and they gave him a matchup versus Greg Hardy. Even though he lost, if he won, it would be good for him because he's semi-marketable, and he's an awesome guy. And I'm saying this is a setup fight for Juan Adams to win, but yet again, this is not a heavyweight fight where you can sit here and say this is a minus 265 worthy performance. It's highly questionable he's going to even be able to finish him. But I'm going to take Juan Adams, but it's going to be by a dominant decision. Moving on to the co-main event, the women's flyweight title. We have Valentina Shevchenko, the Bullet, versus Katlyn Chookagian, another Long Island fighter. But you're going to get melted. Let's be honest here. I'm not going to have to get into the X's and O's of this. If Katlyn Chookagian's really willing to throw down with Valentina and get in the pocket, we know who has more power. We know who has more composure in the pocket. We know who can string together their combinations better. And this is why Valentina is a minus 1,200 favorite. But you can't put any money on that, even though she's going to win by knockout. This is either going to be Katlyn Chookagian getting a sense of the power very early and disengaging and running away, trying to survive the whole fight, and it's going to be a boring 5-round decision. Or she's just going to bite down on her mouthpiece and get knocked the fuck out, and it's going to be dope for all the fans. But that's what I'm praying for, and I'm going to say Valentina by a second-round TKO. And now it's time for the main event. John Bones Jones, best friends with John Stones, center back on Manchester City. How are you doing? Versus Dominic Reyes, Stony Brook football captain, shout out Long Island, and all my boys that go to Stony Brook, because he was your fucking football captain. He's fighting for the light heavyweight championship. It's fucking tomorrow. So, John Jones, the betting lines are getting closer and closer every time this guy fights. He's creeping down to minus 420 because John Jones is blazing it up in the UFC embedded documentaries leading up to this fight week. He's coming in light. He says he's focusing more on his athleticism and his game planning. And he's looking a lot at Reyes' footwork and wanting to put him in positions that he's never been in before. And that's what John Jones consistently does. He comes up with the best game plan, but he's also an absolute dog in there. He always makes sure he's one gear ahead of you in pace and with his setups, and he always gets you to walk into the strikes he wants and get you to fight his fight. But being that it's UFC 247, this is going to be the first time John Jones is going to decisively lose by decision to Dominic Reyes, who's going to put the pressure on him early with his boxing and being able with his footwork to cut off the cage and have the outside foot on him, walking into his straight left hand and his power left kicks. I think Dominic Reyes has the power, the body type, the stamina to even be able to win at least 3 decisive rounds versus Jones, but I think you'll see throughout the fight that Reyes is going to lose rounds 4 and 5. And that's because John Jones is the champion and he has that experience. And I don't know if I could sit here and tell you Dominic Reyes could beat John Jones in a best 2 out of 3 series. But I can tell you, the way John Jones' performances have been going at this point in his career, there's a steady decline. And besides Floyd Mayweather, I've never seen a fighter in boxing or MMA leave undefeated on the top unscathed. And everyone's just assuming that the light heavyweight division's been cleaned out already. And I don't think that's necessarily true. And I think Dominic Reyes is going to put on a performance that is going to be a championship-worthy performance. And we're going to have a new light heavyweight champion. And there is going to be a rematch. Like and subscribe, ladies and gentlemen. Down below, Sally Pots and Pans, UFC 247 predictions and analysis. Peace.